Hi everybody, we're two chubby sisters.
I hope everyone had a very happy and safe Thanksgiving.
Alright, so today's video is going to be about mobsters or gangsters, whatever you want to call them. When you think of mobsters, you think Al Capone, you think John Dillinger, Lucky Luciano, you think big cities like Chicago, New York, Las Vegas, but
you don't really think Quad Cities. Quad Cities, Illinois. Especially a little town of Rock Island. Around here we know there's a mobster, the one that we know of is John Looney.
This is John Looney.
John Looney is like, when they say the OG gangster, he is literally the original. Like, he is the prototype of what all mobsters from like the early 1900s on, based on their careers or careers, I guess it is their career, but
yeah.
The way that they ran their businesses, the way they modeled what a mobster was supposed to be,
what they looked like.
He was like literally the prototype of what they did, especially during the Prohibition era. So John Patrick Looney was born on October 5th, 1865 to Irish immigrant parents, Patrick and Margaret Looney. They lived in Ottawa, Illinois, and that's about an hour. If you're from the Quad Cities or if you know the Quad City areas, it's about an hour and a half away from here. He ended up marrying a Nora O'Connor. They had 3 children, Kathleen, Ursula, and John Connor, which he ended up going by just Connor. He ended up going into studying law. He was a lawyer. And he actually was admitted to the Illinois bar in 1889.
After when they moved to Rock Island, they had 2 houses. The first house was a house called Bel Air. It's, if you know Rock Island, it's
like I said, slightly west of 30th Street,
in River Heights Road.
Yeah.
The second house is called the Looney Mansion. Okay, so this is the Looney Mansion. We're actually across the street in a church parking lot.
Believe it now, I think it's a residential, so now someone actually lives there.
Yeah, because you can kind of, if we zoom in, there's Halloween decorations and stuff.
And it was reported that the house next door, which I'm assuming is this one over here, was his lawyer's house. I don't know how well you can see it. And he liked it so much, and that's when he had that house built after the mansion. So this is where they said that he lived once he moved from Ottawa, where he was born.
This is his first house. So
yeah.
He actually has
2 houses in Rock Island. And this is where his son Connor, when the third child, where they had him and everything. And this is where he lived until, well, he left Rock Island for a while after some crime. But then when he returned, and this is,
this one's called the Looney Mansion.
Yeah.
And then there's one that's called the Looney House.
And this is actually on the Looney Tour, which is, you can get go on here, Rock Island. And there's actually 50 spots throughout the Quad Cities that are related to John Looney. And I think it's like either like Rock Island or the Illinois Preservation, whatever. They actually have a Looney Tour, and if you go onto their website, you can actually find all the different spots throughout the Quad Cities that are actually connected with John Looney and places where he did his business and crimes, where he lived and everything else.
But so it's a really neat house.
Yeah, it's a really neat house. It's old. We didn't want to get too close because it obviously said someone's living there, which I'm sure they're probably used to people filming and taking pictures because it is on a tour.
They used to give tours inside the house, I think, too, but since it went up for sale, 11 years ago, and then I'm guessing whoever's living there now is the people who bought it. So, but okay.
Okay, so yeah, they had the 2 houses, the Looney Mansions, which is probably the most well-known around here. But Looney's first kind of run-in with crime kind of started after he moved here to Rock Island. And they said he had a partner, I'm guessing with his law office, I'm not for sure. But his partner was named as Frank H. Kelly. And the 2 of them actually got in trouble and were indicted for, I think they said, is conspiracy to defraud the city by using inferior materials, which
they were building drainage pipes
or something like that. So the convictions were like overturned because of an appeal, and they never came out of it. But that was kind of like the first like real crime thing that he ever was in. Then he went into politics. He wanted to get into politicians. He actually ran for an Illinois legislation, and he lost. And he blamed that loss on, which, if you're from this area, you very well know it, the Rock Island Argus. The newspaper apparently wrote a lot of articles slamming him and basically smearing his name. And so he blamed the negative articles and negative press is the reason why he lost. So what did he decide to do? Well, you're going to talk about me? I'm going to start my own newspaper. And I'm going to, manipulate people that way. So he ended up finding the Rock Island News is what his newspaper was. And he used it to blackmail, prominent, Rock Island citizens and stuff. And in 1905, he bought an old club called the Mirror Lounge. And he turned that into his offices for his... I think they said the first floor was a law office, and the second floor is where he ran the newspaper. And he actually started bringing in people like his brother from Ottawa to help run the business and started building his basically mob. And they end up starting a thing called what they called kill fees. And it's not what you think. It's not like murder kill fees. It's to kill an article. So basically, he would have an article that would be prominent politicians or people in the city be hey, I'm going to run this article about you that's bad. It's going to make you look bad. If you don't want me to run it, then you're going to pay me a fee. And so that's kind of how he started running a little bit of the legal stuff through his newspaper.
In 1908, things were kind of going downhill financially. He was in a really bad place, and a man by the name of W.W. Wilmerton came in and bought his paper and promptly shut it down, which didn't sit too well with John Looney. So he was pretty upset, and that started an all-out war. There was fires, shootings, bombs in the newspaper building. This lasted about a year, and then at that point he started up the newspaper again in his garage, which they called the Roost.
Yeah.
That led to a personal attack on Wilmerton and his family in downtown shootout on February 22nd, 1909. Looney ended up getting shot in the side, but he was okay. It was just kind of a graze. He wasn't serious. But Wilmerton was arrested for this, but he was never actually formally charged. He was let go. The Bel Air house where it took place,
they said there's conflicting things. Some say it was downtown, and some say it was at Looney's house at Bel Air.
Yeah.
Which I don't really know where all the shootout happened.
There's not real accurate information.
But then again, what we consider downtown now may not have been downtown then.
In the 1920s or 1909.
But he ended up leaving.
Oh yeah, Wilmerton took his family and he'd had enough. He left town and they never came back.
So Looney then this is when the crime really started continue to go on, and he started getting into a lot of stuff. So he was into match fixing, which I guess is it's kind of do with sports. You kind of rig a game or a match or whatever.
Fix the matches.
Yeah. Prostitution was one of his big ones, and illegal gambling and extortion. This is a time where they were trying to get prohibition to be put into law. So a lot of it too had to do with the prohibition and a lot of the legal running too. So what he would do too is he had his prostitutes, someone prominent in the city would be somewhere, he would have them come up and run up and hug them, or throw themselves at someone, and they hurry up and snap a picture, and they would be okay, I now have this picture as evidence that makes it look like you're having an affair, or you're hanging out with prostitutes. And so he's if you don't want this to be running in my paper and be seen, then he would basically blackmail him, you're to pay me this money, or you're gonna help me do this for this business and whatnot. So this obviously, at this point, this is what his business he was running. And one of his lieutenants, Anthony Bilberg, was arrested for extortion at this time. So Looney went to the mayor, who was Harry Shriver, and asked him not to prosecute his lieutenant, and was trying to get his lieutenant off. The mayor was no, I'm not helping you. This guy did this. He's got to be held accountable. And so Looney didn't take that too fondly, and he started running articles out Shriver in his newspaper, because that's just how Looney, worked. And he started running ones that saying that Shriver was having an affair in Peoria, which Peoria is I don't know, a couple hours from here.
It's south.
Yeah, it's a little from here. And anyways, but he's saying that he was having an affair and da da da. And he was writing all these like negative articles about Shriver. Shriver wasn't reacted, and he had Looney arrested. So when he brought Looney in, he ended up actually beating Looney up
himself.
Yeah, Shriver beat him up himself, and they said that Looney actually was hospitalized from the beating and everything like that. Well, Looney's people were not happy, and they wanted him released, and they wanted him out. So 4 days after Looney was arrested, a huge crowd started coming into what they called Market Square. From what we were talking to our mother, and she said that it's still called Market Square, I guess, the area. I'm not really sure. So people started crowding in the Market Square, and they said that at one point there was up to 2,000 people. Okay, and if you're from this area, Rock Island is not that big of a town. And to have that many people in that kind of an area, small area, that's a lot. And riots began coming out. They wanted Looney released. So they ended up storming the police station. And it ended up being like an all-out like shootout. And they said that people were actually like shot and everything like that. And the governor ended up having to state martial law in Rock Island. And they end up raiding all the prostitution houses. They were not allowed to have any public gatherings. Like basically everything was just shut down. Like the town was just shut down, and the National Guard came in. This is like how bad it got because of
they said there was 600 National Guard members.
Yeah, 600 National Guard members coming, just all because Looney was sitting in jail, or well, hospital because he got beat up. But Looney ended up being released. They ended up not being able to obviously hold him for anything. Basically, the reason why he was in jail was just because Shriver was mad at him. And he ended up leaving to a ranch in New Mexico,
which is where he stayed until 1921, and he finally decided to return to Rock Island. And he basically regained control of everything that he had previously lost. He got his newspaper. He got all the prostitution, the gambling dens, all that. But it expanded exponentially.
Huge.
Like there were over 150 gambling dens under his control.
And brothels.
And they said he had over 300 prostitutes.
Which now today are called sex workers. Yes, we gotta get politically correct there. But back then it was called prostitutes.
He extorted protection from local businesses, and he was colluding with corrupt police officers and politicians, which surprise. And including Mayor Shriver, who previously had him arrested and beat the holy crap out of him.
But now suddenly he's on Looney's side.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously this was the point of the heyday for Looney. He was, had everything under his thumb. He was in complete control of the Quad Cities. And at that point, I mean, even though he was based in Oregon, it was pretty much the Quad Cities. So in 1922, the Freemasons, which you probably heard of, we have personal connections to, the Freemasons were having a convention here. The Freemasons Grotto. So basically, because now at this point, prohibition was law. Like, it was in law.
So liquor is completely illegal.
So basically, with the convention come in, there was going to be a lot of people here. All these Freemasons were coming into town. And John Looney had his men go in and like, hey, we'll offer you protection. We can get you into brothels. We can get you into... Get you alcohol, liquor, yeah. We can do all this stuff for a price and stuff like that. And so he started working that convention. Well, the prohibition agents obviously knew something was going to be going down with all these people coming into town, and they started doing raids. And during these raids, they ended up meeting a man by the name of William Gable, who was involved with the mob. William basically became a snitch. And obviously, the saying, snitches get stitches. He ended up providing actually the prohibition agents with canceled checks that were endorsed by John Looney himself. So obviously this didn't settle well with the mob, and on July 13th, 1922, William Gable was murdered. This started an all-out war amongst the gangs. and 12 people actually end up being murdered because of the wars between the gangs.
And then after that, like, basically the mobsters and the gangsters were in control of all of Rock Island. And the Argus began to print, run articles talking about how they were upset and just slamming the whole community for allowing the gangsters to take over. But at that point, pretty much every citizen of the entire town was either illegal gambling, soliciting prostitutes, drinking alcohol. There was not a person in town who was not somehow illegally involved. So they just let the gangsters take over, but the Argus wasn't having it. And they also they took control. Okay, Looney's paper published articles implementing the Argus in Gable's murder at that point, because they were just he was mad about the Argus. Well, he had a bad relationship with the Argus for his whole life.
Yeah, it was just not.
So he started publishing articles saying that the Argus was at fault for Gable's murder.
So this, so obviously this is all going on, and they're trying to find who actually killed William Gable, and which, I mean, we think we already know.
Yeah.
But, and this is where the war started coming to an end, because on October 6, 1922, Looney was in a car with his son in Market Square.
His son Connor.
They were in a car talking when two cars came up behind them and opened fire. Looney escaped the car and ran to a nearby Sherman Hotel. Which
this is like, there was a shootout, and there's the Sherman Hotel. There's a big old hole in the window from the shootout.
Yeah. So they said Sherman Hotel is located on the corner of 17th Street and 3rd Avenue. So I don't really
in Rock Island.
So if you're from this area, that's where about Sherman Hotel was. So that's where Looney escaped to, and Looney ended up counteracting fire back against these people. But unfortunately, his son, I think they said he was only 21 years old, Connor, was killed in that shootout. So as of his 3 kids, the oldest, Kathleen, they said went to a convict, and she was a nun for a while. And then the middle one, Ursula, was kind of but Connor's the one that followed into his father's footsteps. He wanted to be in the business of his dad, and so which ended up getting him killed. So then on October 26, 1922, all stills, speakeasies, brothels, everything under Looney's control were closed down, and all his houses were raided for weapons. The former Mayor Shriver and the police chief were all were arrested on vice protection conspiracy, which, okay. But basically they were arrested for being involved, I think.
Yeah. Looney was indicted for the murder of William Gable, and for running the theft ring, which, actually, they found out that actually spanned several states.
Yeah. Which, I mean, we're right on the Iowa border, so I'm pretty sure
they just basically meant the Quad Cities, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
He fled to Ottawa, which is his hometown, which why would you flee to your hometown? But they didn't catch him. And then he ended up fleeing to New Mexico, where eventually in November, he was caught November 24th. Here is actually the reward poster from,
can you see it?
If you can kind of see it, from when they were looking for him. This is the description that they give.
Bear with us. This is
kind of racist.
It's racist.
The remarks about what you're looking for, it says, walks like an Indian, toes straight forward, at times uses a disguise, may wear natural black beard. He is a lawyer by profession, is well versed in horses and horse racing, has conducted a newspaper, he is a telegrapher, he owns a large ranch near Chama, New Mexico. But walks like an Indian? Really?
Very.
But yeah, he was caught on November 24th.
In New
Mexico.
But he was also brought up on other charges too.
Yeah,
it wasn't just for the murder.
Yeah. In 1925, he was charged with conspiracy to protect gambling, prostitution, and illicit liquor trafficking.
Which is basically rum
running or,
oh, yeah.
Liquor illegal, that's basically what it was. He was later charged with the murder of William Gable, which, surprise, surprise. He was prosecuted in Galesburg,
which is like, I guess it was like maybe an hour,
45 minutes from
something like that.
here.
Yeah, from Rock Island.
It's not. It's all very close.
Yeah.
And sentenced to 14 years in prison in Joliet.
Yeah, he served in Joliet prison.
He ended up only serving 8.5 years because he was so sick that they just let him go because his health was so bad. His daughter Ursula ended up picking him up at the prison when he was being released, and she was said to have said that she didn't hardly recognize him. He looked so weak and so frail that was not the father that she knew. And they ended up making like the backseat of her car into like almost like a hospital bed, and then she took him to Texas where she lived with her husband. And he ended up dying in a tuberculosis sanitarium of tuberculosis, obviously, in El Paso, Texas in 1942.
Yeah, they said like I don't know, like they said that he was like really like, when he came out he was like coughing and really frail, and like they said he wasn't the father that she knew. And that, there's like I don't know, I've read like a couple things, like they said that she had kids too, but they basically were never talked about their grandfather. Like they didn't want his stigma of what he did and the life he led to generations. And then, I actually found some information that like, I don't know how many, it's been a few years ago, one of his great grandchildren, started tracking his history. And come to find out, he's like, it brought him to Rock Island, Illinois. And so he actually came back. And there's actually John Looney tours. If you go to the Rock Island Preservation, I think it's like the website. Or I don't know if you can go down to the Rock Island Center or like whatever. And they actually have a John Looney tour. It's kind of like a self-guided tour. It's not actually...
It's like 50 different...
50 locations in the Quad Cities that is...
either somehow connected to him.
So if you guys want to check that out, you can go online and do that. But there's also quite a few books that are about John Looney. One of them is the, if you want to check it out, it's the Citadel of Sin. It's a John Looney story. But one that you may know most about is The Road to Perdition. It's a graphic novel that was they say loosely based on John Looney, and they actually made it into a feature film, which starred Paul Newman, Tom Hanks, Daniel Craig, and Jude Law. So I mean, big names, and it actually won. I think we said
it won an Academy Award for cinematography.
But they say loosely based on, and in the movie they actually changed the name to Rooney instead of Looney, and I don't know if they
still called his son Connor though.
Yeah, they changed the wife's name too, I think, but like the locations in it are like a little.
I think we're not really sure because we haven't. It's been a while.
It's been a long time since I've seen it. I did watch it.
I think they changed it to Chicago instead of Rock Island. But
yeah, because they said that. Okay, this is.
It could be.
We don't know for sure the exact reason, but we heard that they wanted to film in here, but they thought it would disturb our area too much. The Rock Island,
Quad Cities, and all that.
Because there's a huge name actors and having a big film coming here to film. So they ended up filming part of it in Chicago, and everything. So if you guys want to know more about the John Looney story, check out that movie. There's also, like I said, the graphic novel, which is what the movie's based on, and then there's Citadel of Sin, which is the John Looney story. And then also, if you guys have watched our previous video of the Island Murder Farm, we showed you the gruesome Quad Cities. There's actually several stories in here.
This is book 6.
This is book 6, yes. There's actually several stories in here that are about John Looney.
Go figure, there's several.
Yeah. And then there's also another book that here you can get locally that we have too, is called Ghost of the Quad Cities. And if you notice,
that's actually
the Looney Mansion right there in the cover. There's stories about that in there.
Obviously, it's probably haunted.
So, this was interesting, and we actually, I think, heard about him a lot growing up.
But we didn't know, I don't think, details
until now. When we actually started looking into it to do this video, we're like, wow.
It's very interesting.
It's interesting, especially when it's kind of like in your backyard, basically, you know. So, yeah, that's the story of John Looney, Quad City Mobster, or Vice Lord as his nickname was. Hope you guys enjoyed it. So
Thanks for
you.
watching.
Yes.
Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that bell so that you know when we post. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye.